Hello and welcome back to 365 Days with mxmtoon. I'm Maia, singer, songwriter, video maker, Oakland native, and I love a good burger. I'm also a huge history nerd. I love untold stories, gross facts, and secrets, anything weird, dark, and funky from the past. And each day I'm going to share some of my favorite deep cuts with you. So let's dig into today's stories.
It's 365 with mxmtoon. New facts every day, so don't leave too soon. I'm gonna teach you stuff, no it won't be tough. Gonna go a year till you've had enough. It's 365 mxmtoon.
Back in 1969, a man named Dave Thomas couldn't find a good hamburger, so he decided to do something about it. At least, that's how the story goes. But first, let's reverse. Dave was born Rex Dave Thomas on July 2nd, 1932 in Atlantic City, New Jersey, but was adopted by a couple from Kalamazoo, Michigan, when he was 6 months old. His early life was racked with tragedy. His adopted mother died when he was 5, and by the time he was 10, 2 of his stepmothers had also died. To fill the gap, he spent a lot of time with his adoptive grandmother, Minnie, who ended up having a huge influence on his young life. She taught him the motto, "Don't cut corners," which helped him make his eventual business endeavor a huge success. Dave's family moved to Indiana when he was a teenager, and he started working odd jobs like delivering papers, being a golf caddy, and working the soda fountain at a drugstore. He started working in restaurants when he was 15, and when his family wanted to move again, he just decided to drop out of school instead and stay so he could put down roots and keep his job. He then served in the army during the Korean War, but not in a traditional fighting fashion. Instead, he was the manager of a club for enlisted men, gaining him more experience in how to manage a business. When he got back to Indiana, he met up with one of his former restaurant bosses who owned a few locations of Kentucky Fried Chicken, which had recently opened. He was having trouble running the restaurants in Columbus, Ohio, and offered Dave the chance to manage and hopefully turn them around. Thomas did just that, bringing the Colonel Sanders signature chicken sandwich to the locations, and Dave was able to sell franchises back to the parent company for a $1.2 million in 1968. Fresh off the success and unable to find a good hamburger in Columbus, Dave decided to try his hand at opening his own restaurant. So on November 15th, 1969, Dave opened the first Wendy's hamburger restaurant at 247 East Broad Street. He named it after his 8-year-old daughter, Melinda Lowe, who everyone called Wendy. She was the youngest of his 5 children, with his wife Lorraine, who he married in 1956. His dream with the restaurants was to give each of the children a place to work in the summer. Wendy's became known for its square hamburgers and wide variety of toppings. Remember Dave's grandma's tagline, "Don't cut corners"? That's what inspired the square burgers. In November 1970, Wendy's introduced the drive-up window concept to the fast food world. People were so overwhelmed by the development that they needed instructions on how to talk to the microphone to place an order. They kept adding things to the menu, like a salad bar that was last discontinued in the 90s, and the now famous baked potato. Within 10 years, the humble burger joint had 2,000 stores in the franchise. In 1982, Dave stopped overseeing the day-to-day operations of Wendy's restaurants, but the people who took over didn't have his skills at management and business began to suffer. The president of the company suggested that Dave come back in some capacity to try and revive the flagging sales. He started to visit individual franchises to give pep talks based on his hard-working bootstrap mentality. Dave eventually became the TV face for the restaurant, representing it on commercials all over the country, which helped bring the sales back up to a healthy level. The commercials also made Dave a household name. A survey found that 90% of Americans knew who he was. He appeared in over 800 commercials as Wendy's became the number 3 burger chain in the country. With a successful restaurant franchise under his belt, Dave founded the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption, which created an employee benefits program for people who became parents through the process of adoption. This led to President George Bush naming him a national spokesman in adoption. All the while, Wendy's kept innovating on the menu. They were the first chain to introduce a super value menu on October in 1989 with 9 items available for 99 cents each. Sadly, Dave Thomas passed away in 2002. He was 69 and died of liver cancer in his home in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The original Wendy's restaurant on East Broad Street closed in 2007, but of course there are thousands of Wendy's all around the country where you can celebrate instead. And before you go get that snack, I know you're thinking about it, I have an amazing musical guest, G-Flip, who's here to tell an emotional story about a life-changing government ruling on November 15th, 2017. As a member of the LGBTQ+ community, this moment was incredibly special to me, and I'm so excited to have G on here to tell you exactly how that day felt.
What's up? It's G-Flip here. and today's date is the 15th of November 2020. And the 15th of November has a very, very special spot in my heart, dating back to 2017. It was one of the best days of my life, actually. That morning, got on the train with my pride flag around my neck with my best friend, and we went down to the State Library to hear the broadcast and the announcement if marriage equality was voted yes or no amongst the Australian population. So to give you some information before that, before November 15th, everyone in Australia could vote yes or no. It was voluntary. You didn't have to if you didn't want to vote, but I know everyone, myself and everyone that I know, was really campaigning to get everyone to vote yes because it was so important. And especially for me, I'm very loud and proud gay. I'm queer and I'm proud about it, and I sing about it in my music. And when I had a girlfriend, I told every living soul in the world, I swear to God. But very open about it. So it was very, very, very important to me. And although it was very hopeful and, it looked like towards the end of the year we might be having marriage equality, it was also a really, really tough time for the LGBTQIA plus community, as a lot of feelings were brought to the surface. A lot of people were really campaigning no, and it brought up a lot of conversations within families and family members, who have opposing views. And it was a tough time within the community, and I feel like a lot of hate was brought to the surface, which kind of didn't need to happen. But that's the way it went. We had to vote yes or no. So that morning on the 15th of November 2017, marched myself down to the State Library really early in the morning. I was gathered with hundreds and hundreds of people, all wearing pride flags, pride costumes, rainbow hair, rainbow faces, and we all patiently waited in silence and watched this big screen in the middle of Melbourne, Australia, to see if it was yes or no. And it was voted yes, and it was 61. So it was roughly 61% yes, 38% no. And the joy and the happiness that filled every single person around me. I'm almost tearing up talking about it. And the love that you could just feel in the air and around you. And we were hugging strangers. Everyone's hugging and kissing each other. And, it was so emotional seeing old couples around me who have probably been waiting for the opportunity to be able to legally get married and it not be a thing. Sorry, I'm getting teary thinking about it. And them just uniting and hugging and kissing and knowing that, it was passed and it was voted yes was so magical. And the whole of Australia just lit up. And I know where I was in Melbourne, everyone was partying and running around the streets and singing, and there was music blasting out of all the venues, and every venue had their doors open and everyone was celebrating. And it was such a amazing moment and a great day, and I'll never forget it. And it was one of the best days of my life. And it was great that it was voted yes. And I can go get married now if I want to, which makes me very happy because one day, wherever my wife is, I know she's out there. Hopefully she's listening. Maybe one day we can get married here in Australia, and that'd be really cool. So that is my story of the 15th of November 2017. Cheers.
And now for our final segment of the day, I'm going to be going into my own photo archives to see what I was up to on a November 15th in my life. So on November 15th, 2019, I played my very last show on the North American leg of the Masquerade tour. I guess it kind of continued into the UK a little bit when I went and performed solo sets, but that was in the opening of Robbie Cavetown's tour. However, this was the last show that I was playing after being on tour for like 3 months at that point. And I played it at the Gramercy Theater in New York City, New York. This was a really special show for me. It was one of the biggest venues I think I played. It might have been the biggest venue I played the whole entire time. while I was touring. I think it had around like 750 people there. It's kind of crazy to me. I think the largest show I've ever played is now actually on Twitch when people are watching me. But the show was really special because my family flew out for it. My brother was there. My friends were there because they were going to college in New York. And I had my management team there. I had a bunch of people that I worked with there. I had labels there too to come and watch me. And guess what happened to me? I was so nervous the whole time. I wouldn't stop talking before the show, so I lost my voice while I was performing. So while I was on stage, I sounded kind of like a jazz singer because my voice was so hoarse that like I was trying really hard to compensate for losing so much of my vocal ability. I was on stage drinking hot water with honey and lemon. And there was one point where I was just like, I'm so sorry, guys. Can I just take a break? And so I took a break. Someone brought me a bottle of honey while I was on stage, and I just started eating honey in front of 700 people. I think that's part of the charm of being a musician. When you have a project like mine, you can just be a human being, and that's completely fine too. Part of basically my live show is just kind of like half podcast, half singing. So if you can imagine what 365 is like mixed in with me singing music, that's basically what my live shows are. But that's all for today. Come back tomorrow and maybe bring a burger in hand. Remember to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and follow along in 365 Days mxmtoon on all platforms.
It's 365 with mxmtoon. New facts every day, so don't leave too soon. I'm gonna teach you stuff, no it won't be tough. Gonna go a year till you've had enough. It's 365